media. And we'll see how it goes. We might run through one thing and another, or vice versa. But my hope is to cover both of those topics today. So I want to dive in, and there's a study that came out in July from Green Target that surveyed both C-suite executives and in-house counsel specifically about digital and content marketing. And what types of content are you most interested in reading? How do you find that? What do you find valuable about it? Those sorts of things. So I sent a copy of the report. Hopefully it'll be included. It's in the app now, so you can look at it later. But I've pulled a number of stats from that report that I'm going to use in this survey. So the first one is they asked, what attracts you to the content that you consume most frequently? And hopefully everybody can read this, but utility, usefulness, and it being current were the two top things for folks in both in-house counsel roles and in C-suite roles. So as we're thinking about content marketing strategy, this is one thing that I want us to keep in mind, that it needs to be useful, it needs to be current. Source, I mean, obviously that is still pretty important, but not as important as some of those other factors. So just to survey folks in the room, how many of your firms have a content marketing strategy that's written out, that's a plan that you're following? Raise your hand. How many have a content marketing strategy that you just sort of, it's implied that you know about, but it's not written anywhere? How many have no content marketing strategy, but you plan to have one in the next year? Okay, and how many don't know what that is, aren't planning on it? So you're not alone. Another cool thing from this survey, and they did this survey in 2017 and again this year, is looking at the responses. So there's a lot of firms, we had a couple folks who fell in that, yes, we have a strategy, but we don't write it down. We just sort of know what we're doing. We've learned and we're implementing it. Or the, yes, we're going to put something together soon, but we haven't done it yet. So no matter where you raise your hand, you're not alone in any of these buckets. So don't feel bad about it. So if you're working on developing a content marketing strategy, you need to do a couple of things. Let's see if my animation works. Yes. First, you need to understand, it needs to be understood by everyone, whether it's written down or whether it's implied, and it has to be supported by everyone on the team. So this could mean if you have one marketing person, you may be the person in charge of it, but the people who are on the team are going to be those attorneys who are your content creators. So it's not your marketing person's job to write analysis of new laws or potential new laws or the impact of a court decision or a new federal rule proposal or something like that. That's really on the lawyers. And so you need to make sure that as you embark on a content marketing journey that you have buy-in from everybody on the team. You also need to make sure that once you do this, that you reuse the content as much as possible. And in a couple slides I'll get to sort of ways that you can take an article or take a story topic or something like that and reuse it across a whole bunch of different channels to really get the most bang for your buck from your content. And then the last thing is you need to make sure that it's consistent across the channels that you're using, and then in a lot of cases that it's targeted to the appropriate audience. So if you're writing, say you're doing something on cannabis law, for example, and you're targeting a very specific audience, you don't want to target that to, if you're using things like sponsored advertising on LinkedIn, for example, you want to make sure that you're targeting the people who would be interested in the content that your lawyers have written, not people who may be turned off by it or who have no interest in that. Because you want it to pique their interest, you want to really give them like a nibble of the cookie, if you will, to bring them in to want to talk to you, to learn more about what you do or how you might be able to help them. But at the end of the day, the most important part of a content marketing strategy is content. Because if you don't have any content, you can have a whole plan written down about how to market your content, but you have nothing to market. So that's first and foremost the most important thing, is you have to have that buy-in and you have to have a plan. So in some cases, we've done it a whole host of different ways. Some of our attorneys are very good at keeping track. They've set a plan. We want to put out one new piece of content every month, and then there's a partner in the group that sort of assigns work out to individuals and then holds them accountable. Hey, I haven't seen your article yet. I'm waiting for it. It was due. And they really sort of hold people accountable. In other instances, and Brent knows this, we've created full editorial calendars marketers to say, it's really not that much work. You know, there are 8 of you. If you want to do 1 per month, no one, in 1 year you're writing 1 article, maybe 2, but then it's not coming back around to you for a whole other year. Unless they're really bought into it, that's when I'm harder to sell. I'm not going to lie, we've created editorial calendars for days, but if the attorney's not really bought in, or they may be in that initial meeting, but then once they realize the time that goes into creating content, it's like the editorial calendar goes off the window. So the most important thing you have to have before you can effectively execute a strategy is content. Does anybody else have those issues around content creation piece?
Yeah, my firm wanted to have a blog that goes out every week, and the managing partner actually assigned to every attorney the week they were responsible for, and it could be on anything. It doesn't have to be on the law. It could be on a personal experience or whatever. And that worked for about the first round, and then people just stopped doing it.
Yeah.
And he would say, hey, it's time for your blog, and people just stopped doing it. And he started writing every single blog for like 2 or 3 months. He said, I'm out of content. So it was a little bit of a failure for us.
It's really hard.
So we're going through that now, trying to develop a whole content strategy. And parts of this is very opaque for us because questions such as, how many of these articles you need to put a group together? How many do you try to come up with in your first year? Is it 1 a month? Is it 1 every few months? How big should these things be? Right? I mean, you're going to send these things out. Typically, the readers don't necessarily want to have a 5-page document that they want to read. And then the third question we have, and maybe you're going to cover it, is okay. So how do you maximize your exposure for this? Right? If you don't have a CRM, so you're not just sending it to clients, but you want to send it. I mean, you have LinkedIn, but how do you maximize the return, or how do you know that this content is getting out to people that you want to target?
Yep, I will actually hit on that in a little bit. Not too far ahead, but it's one of those things that I think we all struggle with, is also trying to figure out cadence and understanding that in a lot of cases people are managing practice, they're managing, in some cases you're managing other work on behalf of the law firm, you're also managing a personal life, and where do you find that balance to really strive to take on this marketing piece? But in a digital world, these things can be really important, and the nice thing about digital content, instead of just spending money to buy advertisements, for example, is that you can at least get analytics and information on that data. So you can see, based on Google Analytics on your website, how many people have visited your web page, how many people came to your web page from Google because you wrote about this thing. On LinkedIn, you can see how many people viewed or commented on your posts, but if you do sponsored posts, you can see how many people saw it, how many people clicked on it. So you're really, and if you start to get into real lead generation and trying to build marketing lists by having people sign up to download white papers or something like that, you can really start to track even business leads through that. So there are a lot of opportunities to really sell people, but first you have to get them bought into the baby steps. So what we do, sort of to your first point, is we start out typically saying you don't need a blog, right? Blogs are a lot of work, they're a lot of effort. Why don't we try a newsletter, and let's try to do it quarterly. Sometimes people say quarterly is not enough, and we'll say, okay, well, let's try for every other month, and then it ends up being quarterly. But then if they do feel like they have a lot of good content, or they're not writing enough, then we can turn up the heat, right? We can start sending things out more frequently, but they at least know the work that goes into that. Because I think all of us who are marketing professionals have had somebody call and say, I want to blog on this, and it's like, have you ever written content on this topic more than like one time? You don't understand the amount of time and investment that goes into writing every single week, especially if it's just you. And so that's one thing we call them pilot projects, where if you want to blog, you have to write content once a week for 3 months. And if you're able to do that, and we post it on our website, so you're still getting some value. We share it on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Then we'll work with you to give you a blog. But we're not just going to give you a blog, because there's a lot of expenses this part quickly, but this dives into a little bit that first slide I had about things being relevant. So in-house counsel, they say the content that they want it to be educational. 90% said that was the top thing that they're looking for in content. C-suite leaders say they want it to be relevant. So they want it to be timely, they want it to be something that's of interest to them. Number 2 for in-house counsel is relevant, as you can see. And number 2 for C-suite leaders is educational. So we're targeting, in some cases you may be targeting, for some practices you may be targeting heads of real estate or CFOs or CIOs. You can tell the interests aren't that different between the general counsel or the in-house counsel and the CEOs and C-suite executives. And then in-house counsel also really wants to be easy to read. So obviously you don't have a lot of time. You want to be able to read something quickly, get some key takeaways, understand what you need to know, and get back to work. So basically, relevance, education, and timeliness are the key things that you need to think about as you start to put together a content marketing strategy. And I pulled a couple quotes from this report that I pulled out here because I thought that it was good to sort of hear from folks about what they're thinking. So this one, I control what goes into my head obsessively to ensure that the right information is getting there. I want information that's relevant to me and that impacts me. So as you're thinking about writing something, you don't want to spend half the article talking about the experience your law firm has in that area. They don't care about what your law firm does. They want to know, this new law, how does it impact my business, and what do I need to know? This one too, give me information that I can use, not content that tells me how great and wonderful you are. The 5 competitors before you and the 10 after you are saying the same thing, and I can't do anything with that information. So again, it goes back to making sure that when you're thinking about it, the value that you're providing is this something someone can print off or save or bookmark and come back to later, even if maybe it's not an issue they're thinking of right away, but that they're going to go back to. So we'll get into it a little bit. Actually, maybe on the slide. Yeah, so how do you do that? How do you accomplish meaningful content that is great, that's timely, that's relevant, that people are going to save and not say, oh, this is too salesy, or your competitors have already sent me this, I'm moving on with my day. First, keep it short. And when I say short, I don't mean 5 words. I mean less than 1,000 words. I would say 700. 600 to 700 is probably a really good spot. But sometimes things are extremely detailed, and your target audience may want to know some of those intricate details or how things might get impacted. But anything longer than 1,000 words should probably be broken up into 2 separate pieces. Maybe a series, or you create something that's much longer and market it as a white paper analysis and really do a deep dive. But really think about if you're posting things online on your website or emailing it out to your clients, you don't want to send them a book via email. No, you're not reading emails that are that long. We shouldn't expect our clients or our prospects to either. Also, one thing that I always tell our lawyers is consider using top 10 lists. Consider using things that help break up your content. It goes back to that easy to read piece. I know we all love reading those lists, so do in-house counsel. So as you're thinking about it, if there is an opportunity to put it into a list form, do it. It sounds cheesy, but people like reading it. And we've seen time and time again from our analytic data that those emails and those pieces of content perform better than other pieces of content. And use it as a subject line so that people know, like, oh, do I know about these top 10 things? Maybe I don't. Or maybe there's one thing that I hadn't thought of that you put on your list. Also, work with your marketing professionals if you have them, or to the extent that they have time. Again, this is all about scaling things. But if you are thinking about, or you're at the place where you've started to build a program and now you want to know, how do we show up in search? So when people are searching Alaska and cannabis, how do we make sure that our content is coming up, right? And so there are very cheap tools you can use. Google actually has free tools you can use where you can look up keywords to see how things are performing, what people are searching for, to make sure that you're using some of those words or terms in your content. It's pretty easy to build it in. It's usually more conversational than legal, but really opportunities to show up for free in search results. Now, just because you use keywords doesn't mean you're going to be the top performing piece of content. There are a whole lot of other factors that go into that, including how often your website is updated, how big it is, You're going to be competing against news outlets that are far more trusted on the scale, but using keywords certainly doesn't hurt you, I guess would be my point. And then lastly, remember to spend time thinking about the headline and the lead paragraph. Because at the end of the day, especially if you're content marketing using email, or you want people to discover you via search online, or even using social media, if you don't have something that gets their attention, they're never going to read it. Or if you send them an email, they'll open it, and then if they read the first paragraph and they're falling asleep, then they're not going to keep reading. Or maybe even just what they see in the preview text makes them go, I don't have time for this. So as you're thinking about it, and attorneys I think suffer from this the most, you spend so much time thinking about the content that you're writing and making sure that it's accurate, and you spend zero time thinking about the headline. Or you spend zero time thinking about what's my hook, what makes this relevant, what makes this timely, that's going to make the people that I'm sending it to want to read it. So I would encourage everyone, as you're thinking about these plans and working with your authors, that that's something that you're stressing to them and that you're also thinking about. So I challenge our attorneys a lot on their headlines. I challenge our other team members as well to say, register for this webinar isn't a good email subject line. Let's think about what we can do to try and make it so that people want to open it, and then we'll go from there. So once you have content, here's to answer your question earlier. What do you do with it? So if you have an article, you can post it to your firm website. You can email it out to a targeted list. You can share it on your social media channels. I would suggest LinkedIn, and if your firm uses Twitter, are the two best case uses for this. I'll talk a little bit about each of those platforms later, depending on the type of practice that you have, or really the type of content that you're sharing. In some cases, Facebook may make sense, but in a lot of cases, people are looking for pictures of family, they're looking for community events, they're looking for other things, and in-depth analysis on certain things. It's just not what people are looking for on that platform. So be strategic about social media. We'll get to that in a minute. A lot of firms use content aggregators, so we use Lexology. We pay, and they take all the content from our Vorys blogs and our client alerts and put it onto their site. And then every day they send out an email newsletter that goes to Association of Corporate Counsel members with links from all the firms that pay them. We are by no means the only one. But it's another place to get our content in front of people that we're trying to target. There are others like Mondac, JD Supra. I'm sure there are others that folks know or have been approached by, but those are the three I would say most established in the legal field. But they take your content for a relatively small fee and then basically steal it, repurpose it, and then send it out to their audiences as their own. The nice thing I will say about Lexology is that they give you analytics, so you can see how many people have read your article, where they're coming from. So if they're coming from other countries, if they're coming from certain parts of the United States, you can see that. And then they'll also tell you the company where that person works and their general role. So you're never going to find out exactly their specific job title, so you can find out who it is, but you can get a sense for, is there some industry that was very interested in this that maybe we should think about repurposing it in a different way. And that's where I get to my last point, and we talked about this a little bit on the event side, but if you have content that's good, it seems like people were interested in it, you've already spent a ton of time, or your lawyers have spent a ton of time researching it, do something else with it, right? So don't just share it everywhere, but create a slide deck and put on a webinar. It doesn't have to be super in-depth. It could be a half hour. A quick program just gives some of the quick highlights that you've already spent all that time on. Market yourself or your attorneys as an expert and continue to get eyes on not only you, but on your content. Or if it's, you've done a number of things and you feel like you have expertise or, again, see interest, consider putting on, we've been doing this with some of our emerging practice areas, putting on a half-day event where you invite some of your clients or others to come and talk about these areas that you have seen people are interested in from a content marketing perspective. Our labor and employment group, for example, they put on seminars across a number of our offices, and when they look at sort of what are we going to put on the agenda, sometimes they are literally looking at our email data and saying what were the most popular things that people read this year that our group put out. We should probably talk about that. They know what they're getting called want people to say, we're on top of this. It isn't just the things you already know that you're concerned about, but here are some emerging issues that you need to be aware of. So and now this is sort of where I get to social media. Before I dive into that,
Before you get into social media, another thing perhaps you can comment on is videos. Do you use videos at all? Do you find that in terms of content marketing?
It really depends. So we have some practices, and Britt talked about our e-control practice, which is our fastest growing practice area, and they're working with brands, and they're only in the digital space, really. So for them, video is extremely important, and we invest resources to make sure that the videos that we're putting out are high quality. We use YouTube and other platforms mainly just to help us with SEO. So we record webinars that are for public, so things that you can register, things that we're mailing out, things that aren't for specific clients, and then we upload those webinars to YouTube. So that helps us, again, with the keyword search. We're using the headlines, and sometimes video just shows up higher in search. It also, for some people, like they'll listen to a presentation in the background while they're doing other things, but they may not read the client alert. So we try to take advantage in that way, but like specifically like video series or sit-down interviews and things like that, we haven't experienced. We tried it, but we didn't get a lot of ROI on it, so we moved on. The thing we're experimenting with right now is podcasts. So one of our more talkative, she used to be a radio host in college. Labor and employment partners really wanted to do a podcast. So we've been experimenting with her. It's a podcast we call Vorys at Work, where she interviews clients and other Vorys lawyers on issues, labor and employment issues, or issues that in-house HR and employment counsel should be thinking about. It's very conversational. We try to keep every episode to less than 20 minutes, and it's really a pilot program. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of data out there on law firm podcasts for us to compare ourselves to, so we're just really giving it a shot and trying to manage our expectations there, but it's just another way on some of these issues that we are identifying that we just want to put content out in front of people in whatever way they want to consume it. Is anybody else trying podcasts?
We're just starting. We are startups. Fittingly, we're just finding the right vendor to kind of help us. I guess I never thought about somebody internal that might be kind of chatty, but we just haven't done it, so we don't know what we don't know yet. So
we're doing it. We're recording using. We bought headsets, and we're using Skype to record it, and then we have the Adobe Creative Suite for a couple of our folks. We're doing the audio editing in-house, and it's extremely cheap exploration, really. But it's been so far it's been interesting, but we're running into the same roadblocks with written content, with podcasts. We've gotten the first 5 episodes out, and now I think I can email her like once a week, like, when are we recording the next one? Like, who's your guest? So it's the same thing. You run out of ideas no matter if you just have to talk to people or if you have to write it. We're running into a lot of the same roadblocks. So it's definitely interesting. All content issues are the same.
So we have in Boston an internet radio show that they interview lawyers and other people, so I've been on it a few times. I have to say I don't know a lot, exactly how many people listen or watch or whatever, but subscribe, there's a big amount of subscribers, but people I've used it on my emails to change them up every few months when I have time to go on, and people actually click on it and ask me about the topics I talked about, so I think it's kind of cheating being on someone else's podcast, but
hey, that's even better. I also manage our firm's PR, and I would say anytime you can get somebody to talk to you and then you can use that, it really gives you that third-party validation. So there's no reason why your firm has to own all of these things. But all content is good content for sure. Somebody else have their hand up? Okay. So social media, I'm going to spend a good amount of time talking about LinkedIn, just because I think it's probably receive the most value because of the access that we have to the types of targets or to our current clients. So from this Green Target survey that I talked about earlier, they pulled out some information specific to LinkedIn. So they say that 60% of C-suite leaders are on LinkedIn at least once a week. And that's access, like logged in actually on the site, not just like touched it and accidentally opened the app on my phone, but really like spending time in the platform. Now they don't define how long that time is, but it is, they have said I log in and spend time on LinkedIn at least once a week. Greenhouse Council, that number is lower, but 31% is still, once a week is 31% of people are in this platform once a week that are in your target universe. That's still probably a good use of your time, particularly because there are a lot of ways to take advantage of this platform that don't cost you dollars to do it. So how can you best take advantage of LinkedIn? First of all, so say you have a nice piece of content you've written for a blog, you have a podcast, you have a video, you have something that you put on your firm's website as a client alert or an update, real estate update. Don't just share a link to that from your personal page, from your attorney's personal pages, or all of this that I'm talking about right now is from your law firm's page. So don't forget that in addition to personal accounts, your law firm's page can be extremely powerful. And so any type of content that you as a law firm are creating, you should be sharing on your law firm's LinkedIn page. You share it just like you would on a personal page, whoever you would like to designate as the administrator. You would post it just like you would on your own page, but from your firm's page. That gets you slightly more analytics than an individual page, and then you can also, if you're so inclined, encourage people from your firm to share your firm's posts so that they might see more content from your firm that maybe wasn't applicable to their practice area or something like that. So from your firm's page, make sure that you're writing something interesting to accompany the link that has a really cool headline that you spent time thinking about that will make people want to read on. So everybody's seen it when you're in these platforms. You're scrolling somewhat quickly, so if something pops out at you, you might click it to read more. So think about some way to describe it, pull out a key stat from it, do something that's going to grab people's attention. The other thing when you're sharing things on LinkedIn is to make sure that there's something visually when it shows up that looks appropriate. So if you're including images with your blog posts or with whatever you're sharing on LinkedIn, make sure that you can kind of tell what that image is, or the way it gets cropped. It isn't like we had this issue once where we were sharing an image and it ended up just showing everyone's feet. So really checking it out, making sure once you post it that it looks appropriate, because those images also really do draw people in. So to the extent that you can control that, or a lot of our articles, when we share them from Vorys.com, just have our logo, but it still looks very professional. So the next thing is ask the authors or other folks to then share what you shared on your firm's page on their own page. If they don't know how to do that or they don't care, then just ask them to share that content from their own page with their own. We have a number of our authors who will just say, read my latest piece. That isn't the best thing, but it's what we can get them to do, and I will take it, right? So making sure that because every single network, so my network is different than Jessica's network, is different than Britt's network, is different than everyone else's. So making sure that if people are sharing your content with their networks, you don't know how many of their contacts might see it, but they may never see it unless you have them share it. And then another thing about LinkedIn has been trying over about the last year and a half to incorporate the use of hashtags. Hashtags are more prevalent. They started out as a way to find information on Twitter. Facebook has been using that, but LinkedIn has been leaning into them very hard recently. And they're a good way. They do it the same way you do on these other platforms. If you click on a hashtag, it will take you to a search results page that has posts from your connections or pages that you like or things that they think based upon information that the computer has about you that you might be interested in around that hashtag. So if you're writing about like a piece of legislation that has a name, for example, in your state or something like that, making sure you're using the hashtag that the legislators are using, or that, you know, the industry groups are using, so that your content is appearing next to theirs in the platforms where it's relevant. And it's not super hard to identify what those hashtags are. You can go and just look at who's a leader in the space and what are they sharing, and are they using hashtags? And if they are, then I'm probably going to copy theirs. Unless it's one that's clearly for their own law firm, and then I don't want to steal that. I'll make up my own.
Is this already in place, or LinkedIn's trying to make that?
So LinkedIn has started doing it. It's not as popular as it is on Twitter, because Twitter's had hashtags for years, but the nice thing that LinkedIn does is it will read your content and then automatically suggest hashtags for you based upon your content. Sometimes those are really good suggestions, and sometimes they're just terrible. So it still does require a little bit of maintenance on your end to know this is good or this isn't, but they are definitely pushing it because it's easier for them to see, they can start to track trends, and it's easier for users to find that relevant content. So the last thing, the use of showcase pages in groups. So how many people know what a showcase page is on LinkedIn? No one. Okay. So about now, I guess it's probably been about 3 years ago, LinkedIn rolled out the ability, so if your law firm has a page on LinkedIn, every company page has the ability to have up to 10 showcase pages underneath it. So these are like, think of yourself as like the tree. You can have like saplings underneath you that are all associated with your tree, but are sort of standalone on their own. People can follow that individual thing. So for us, we use them primarily for our industry groups or for practice areas that put out a lot of content. So for example, we have a showcase page that is Employment Law Insights. That's what it's called, but it's clearly a page of Vorys. The only thing we share there is our labor and employment content. So you follow that page if you only want our labor and employment content. You don't care about our tax content or IP content or real estate content that we're sharing from our main Vorys page. We've used that for our oil and gas practice, for our healthcare group. So things that we know that people might follow for that specific sort of information, but they may not follow our law firm for. I'm not going to lie, we've had limited success marketing showcase pages because unlike our firm's page where people who work at Vorys will follow the page, or people who are interested in our firm or apply for a job might follow our page. It's harder to find those pages, but we found that the types of folks who are following them are really quality when they do find it. And you can do any sort of marketing, so sponsored posts, investing small amount of dollars to showcase a post to a targeted audience. So say you're interested in in-house IP professionals. You're trying to market a webinar that you're putting on about a trend in IP law. You could use an IP page to post and target your webinar in their LinkedIn feed, targeted based upon their job title. So you could look at, I want their job title to have intellectual property or IP, and I want them to be in like counsel or general counsel, or you could, and I want them to be located in this city, this state, these 3 cities, any of these locations, wherever whatever makes sense to you. And then you could basically set a budget. I want to spend $100 on this. So, you know, and it's based on, you can either set it to how many people are seeing it or how many people are clicking on it. And then it'll go through your budget and then you'll see what happens. But it's a good opportunity to also increase followers for your pages if you're investing in those sorts of things. So that's what showcase pages are. Obviously a big endeavor for really small firms, but if you have an emerging group that you're trying to work on, that you're putting out content for, it may be more, our e-control group has their own showcase page, for example, because they put out so much content, we don't want to share it all from Vorys. It would vary everything else that we do.
On behalf of the small firms that have somebody in marketing. So if I have an article I wrote, and I mostly want to get it out to my people, I would post this on my personal LinkedIn page. Would you suggest that I post it on the firm's? I think honestly that I probably have more people, I have more connections than our firm does, because our firm, nobody is pushing our firm's website or our firm's LinkedIn page at all. So would I post it on the firm's page and then link to that in my page, or the other way around?
It would be easier for you to post it to your firm's page and then share it from your firm's page. whether or not your firm can even share your post, or you could just share it from both places. There's no reason why you can't share content across multiple authors, across multiple pages, across multiple groups. The other thing about LinkedIn groups is that if you're a member of a group, say it's, most people don't manage these. Creating and moderating a group is a lot of work. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that, but there are groups you can search for and find on LinkedIn that are just groups of professionals who are interested in something. And so if you have spent time creating content and you have a little bit of time or you're interested in getting eyes on that, try to join or identify relevant LinkedIn groups where you could join and then share your article. Now I will say that if you do that, if people have questions, they're going to type a comment. And so you need to make sure that you're not joining the group, sharing your article, leaving the group, and never coming back. So you really want to make sure if you're taking the time to share in a LinkedIn group or even on your own personal page, that you also take time to respond and engage to people if they have questions or if they reach out. So it is definitely a little bit more work than just, emailing it out and maybe one person might reply to you or something like that. But in some cases, you want the people that are most interested who are asking you questions. It's definitely, those are influencers in that space.
In terms of strategy, does it make sense for the firm's page to share content to be published by third parties, like other companies? Or
in some cases, so if it's content that you put out, so for example, we have some of our attorneys regularly publish articles on law360.com. That's behind a paywall. So if we shared that article on law360.com, unless you have a subscription, you can only read like the first paragraph before you're prompted with a pay us money to read this article. So for us, that's not super quality because the people who are clicking on it aren't getting what we're trying to sell them. So what we do in those instances is we'll post something on our website that says somebody wrote an article. We'll pull out what we think is like a key couple of paragraphs, quote it, and then say to read the whole thing, click here, and then we'll share that on our LinkedIn. So that's still saying, hey, look, this third-party media source thought we were smart enough to write about this topic, and here are the key takeaways if you're not a subscriber, but if you are, click here and you can read the whole thing. But if it's something that's free, like Contact, for example, there's no reason why you couldn't share that, but sometimes they may serve up your competitor's content right next to yours. And so you just have to think, when you're thinking through those things, just making sure that whatever decision you make, you're comfortable. Same with YouTube. It's cool to share YouTube videos, but then you don't know what's coming up after your video. Right? You don't really get to control that unless you pay a lot of money. So just trying to figure out if you're comfortable with the subject matter that might appear next to you based on what it thinks people might be interested in next. Okay. So then there's two other platforms I had on here really quick. So Facebook, like I said, we have found that people aren't interested in reading in-depth legal content on Facebook. So we use it to share primarily community stuff and news about our people. So this is one of my favorite posts because we sponsored a charity baseball night in Akron, and the managing partner's grandson posed next to our sign. But on Facebook, obviously, photos perform extremely well. So if you are using it to share news about your community service, about charity events that you're hosting, I would encourage you to use Facebook for that. Tag your people if they're comfortable with it, and really use it like you would your own personal page. It's far more about community and about people than it is about news and articles. Or if you're going to do that, at least do a mix of that information. And then the last thing, Twitter. And again, this is very scalable. So if you have a team that has a number of folks, you can create Twitter accounts for all of your big practice areas and have it managed by marketing folks, or the lawyers might be super into it. But if you don't have that time or capacity, at least consider creating one account for your firm. Again, just using it as an opportunity to get your content in front of a different audience using those hashtags we talked about before, but also it gives you an opportunity, share your stuff on Twitter and sharing things on LinkedIn makes your stuff, it links back to your stuff, which makes it appear higher in search. So the more of these popular sites you can get your content on, the better it is when people are Googling your results. So that's another reason to take advantage of these things. So at Vorys, we have our main account, it's at Vorys Law. And we use a platform called Hootsuite, which it's free for basic level. We pay to have a couple user accounts, but it's like $30 a month. It's not a substantial investment. And it allows us to schedule things in advance. So our social media person can go in on Monday, schedule out a bunch of tweets for our content for the week in 15 minutes, and then she's done scheduling stuff. It also will give you analytics on how many people clicked on your links. So I would encourage you to look at a third-party platform for Twitter. Twitter gives you some data now, but it's not very good. I don't really think it's very genuine. And we also have, we do use accounts for some of our practice areas that want them. We make our attorneys run these. We don't. And as you can see, they have 18 followers. They don't tweet very often. So again, it goes back to just like a blog, just like a content editorial calendar. You really have to get that buy-in. I'm actually hoping to delete like half of our accounts. So don't judge us if you go look at Vorys on Twitter. All the ones that are Vorys Law are run by lawyers, including the one for our Houston office. And then the last thing I'll say about Twitter, and this is I think my last slide, is it's also okay if you want to just have your own account, or if you want your lawyers to have their own accounts. That's totally fine, and we encourage that. So our people are our products, and people want to work with people they like. And so there's no reason why you can't be a person on the internet. And so the guidance that we always give is it's totally okay to share updates about what's going on in your field, and it doesn't always have to be content that you write. It could be news articles, it could be other things, and it's also okay to share pictures of your family, or if you're doing community service, or if you're at a game, or just generally living your life, because again, people want to hire and work with other people. And so our attorneys' Twitter accounts do much better than our practice group Twitter accounts, because people find them, they know them, they want to follow them, and they engage with them. And so I use Dave because he's a really good example. He tweets quotes, but he also tweets, he's one of our immigration lawyers, and he is always sharing news articles about updates in U.S. immigration law, which right now is an extremely hot topic. And he talks about being a partner in a law firm, but then he also says things like, I'm a Rotarian. So